Why Media Group? The fastest growing media group in North America.
Hello and welcome to Y Media Newsroom. I'm Ramona Singh, and it's great to be here with you today. We have lots to talk about. We have the conflict that's back on between the United States and Iran. We're going to give you all the details of what's been taking place since yesterday. NATO summit is also taking place on July 7th and 8th. Lots has happened in Turkey, where you have the NATO members meeting. We're going to cover all of that with you and much more on today's newsroom. So I want to start with this developing story on the war. It looks like it's back on. There was a ceasefire, if you recall, at the end of the G7 summit. President Trump signed the MOU. Iran signed the MOU. That was just June 17th, not that long ago, to start a 60-day period of discussions for a peace deal. Well, it looks like from all sides that ceasefire is over. And maybe it'll be back on again because we know that this escalations do have an end point, and with both sides and the fluctuations of tempers and differences. Well, this is not a surprise, but we're going to give you all the latest developments. So now we got the breaking news yesterday that the United States had launched more than 80 precision strikes against Iranian military targets after Tehran attacked three commercial vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz. So we know since the ceasefire that the Strait of Hormuz was supposed to be open. Now, the items in the ceasefire and the MOU is that the Strait of Hormuz is open free. And this is what it appears President Trump believed was the case, that essentially for the 60-day period, there will be no charging of tolls, that essentially vessels can transit the Strait of Hormuz like they did prior to the eruption of the war on February 28th. That's when Israel and the United States attacked Iran and erupted the war, killing the slain Ayatollah Khamenei, whose funeral procession is still ongoing in Iran. And so that erupted the entire war, and the Strait of Hormuz closed. Now, we know, anyone who knows history knows that the Strait of Hormuz was always a strategic point for Iran to close it up, essentially choke 20% of the world's energy route, which would then essentially disrupt global markets. If it costs you more money to put gas in your car, and if it costs more money to buy food and pay for goods, well, that has to do with the Strait of Hormuz. When you have a country like Iran that essentially has the land mass of the geography of being completely in charge of the northern route of the Strait of Hormuz, essentially has access to the choke point, which holds the other GCC countries hostage when it comes to production and export of their oil. That would be Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Iraq, Oman, and the rest of them. So Iran is trying to assert its power over the Strait of Hormuz, trying to essentially formalize its position in the Strait of Hormuz and potentially charge tolls in the future. And so this entire thing erupted because what took place? Well, Iran targeted a Qatari-linked Marshall Island flagged liquefied natural gas LNG tanker. That was one of the three vessels, the second one being the Saudi flagged crude oil supertanker, and the third one being the Cyprus Prosperity tanker, which is the Liberia flagged tanker. Essentially, there's the flag of the countries that the tankers belong to. And what took place there is you had the U.S. Central Command say that the operations, this is the U.S. side, targeted the defense systems, command centers, coastal radar, as well as anti-ship missile sites and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps naval assets. President Trump said that Iran had violated the ceasefire and warned for more strikes would follow. Now, the 80 precision strikes targeted included the radar, missile batteries, command centers, as well as the IRGC naval vessels. President Trump warned the United States would strike Iran again. In fact, he said tonight it's going to strike Iran. And Washington also reinstated the sanctions on Iranian oil exports, which was lifted when the MOU was signed just weeks ago. So now the question begs, why did Iran attack the three vessels? Well, it appears that the three tankers, that the commercial tankers to be exact, that were attacked in the Strait of Hormuz were driven by what Iran sees it as a severe and several strategic, geopolitical, as well as route dispute reasons, they call it. Well, let's take a look at what they want to do. In the 60 days, yes, they signed that the toll, there will be no toll in the Strait of Hormuz. But when you look at it, why is Iran trying to enforce maritime route demands? We saw this take place just a few weeks ago when the UN decided to carry out the vessels that were stranded in the Strait of Hormuz, and then the attacks escalated again with the United States. Same story, repeating again just another week later. So now Iran has heavily restricted. So if the Strait of Hormuz, you can see that there's a slight passageway for the exit way, right? And then there you have two routes that have been created. One is the northern route of the Strait of Hormuz that Iran wants to formalize and control. And then there's a southern route, which is closer to Oman. And so now you have Iran has demanded that all vessels register with Tehran and navigate through its approved northern route. And the three tankers that were going through the Strait of Hormuz, they were actually essentially going through the US Navy supported southern corridor near Oman's coast. So what did that mean? Well, Iran's state television indicated that the tankers were attacked after ignoring warnings to stay out of the alternative lane. And now another reason is, well, we can see very clearly Iran wants to gain leverage and charge a passage fee. This is no secret. If you recall, they charged about $2 million for passage and security way during the height of the escalations that took place between Israel, United States, and Iran. And guess what? Vessels were happily paying the toll because the $2 million was far less than the consequences on the different countries when they're using their emergency fuel to be able to meet the demands of the shortage that was taking place. So now this is something that we know is going to take place. And so what is Iran doing at this time is trying to make sure that there's no gray in the fact of them wanting to take full authority of the Strait of Hormuz and charge tolls and fees for security and secure passageway with the Strait of Hormuz, indicating that if you go through the northern route, then you will not get attacked. If you go through the not approved Iranian route, you will get attacked. And what does it have to lose when it comes to the escalations of the United States? The United States increases its escalations, well, then Iran will buckle down and close the Strait of Hormuz, and then the global markets will react again. The Strait of Hormuz is something that the United States wants to keep open because it needs to make sure that the inflation numbers come down. It has midterms elections just a few months away. It's got the pressure of the GCC countries who need to export their oil because their country depends on the oil exports and the revenues that come from it. At the same time, it's all the inflation numbers that are going up in every other country that the United States knows that essentially it triggered this war and triggered this inflation era problem when it comes to energy prices. So now Iran is saying, okay, well, we'll escalate it again. The world has more to lose because of energy prices, as well as the pressure on the United States is far greater than the severe impact of what's taking place with Iran. And they've done the calculations, right? When you run calculations on any risk you want to take, you essentially know what you're going to lose and what you're going to gain. And they're playing the long-term game, a game where United States needs to play the short-term game, which is open up the Strait of Hormuz, make sure that the countries have access to enough fuel, LNG, natural gas, bring down inflation, bring down energy costs, and go into a midterms where the Republicans don't lose the House and the Senate. Easy as that. That's the equation. So here is what is at stake. So now this interim peace memorandum, the MOU that was signed by the United States, as well as Iran, as well as Pakistan back in June, well, that guaranteed the free passageway for the 60 days. But when it comes to what analysts are looking at, they're reporting that Iran wants to unilaterally dictate traffic flow to force what would be ships into the waterways where it controls. And doing so would lay the groundwork for Tehran to assert sovereignty over what would eventually be a lucrative transit and service fees from these commercial vessels that will pay it. Iran knows they'll pay it. And that's going to be billions of dollars of revenues worth coming into the Iranian economy for its rebuilding of its infrastructure that's lost. And this is really no secret, just like how we knew it wasn't a secret that Strait of Hormuz would close. Again, what Iran's motive here is no secret. It's just it seems like the president is not aware of what his negotiation terms are and what he's really looking at when he signed the MOU and what forced him to sign the MOU. If you recall, there was going to be an escalation point between Israel and Iran. Iran was gearing up to go into war again with Israel, if you recall that. And then right away, you have this MOU that's signed. So did the United States sign the MOU too quickly, not knowing what is that implication and what Iran is going to impose anyway? And so is it just a surprise to the president and not the rest of us? And this is where we stand right now because you have now security experts that believe that Iran's timed in terms of the strikes on the three vessels was to gain leverage and maximize its bargaining power when it comes to the permanent peace talks that are now stalled. But what does Iran have to lose during these stalled times? Yes, if the blockade on Iranian ports go there, it's going to impact Iran's export of its own oil. Since the sanctions were removed for just 2 weeks and now back on, Iran was still selling its oil anyway. And it's already taken a hit when it comes to its own currency. It's already in a mourning period. It's already, in a massive inflation. So the question remains, could it endure it a little bit longer while the United States definitely has to come to the table because of all the other pressures around the United States in terms of ending this war? And this entire Iran-US escalation has sidelined the NATO talks. You have Ukraine that was looking to come to have talks about Russia. Meanwhile, the biggest flashpoint here is still the Iran-United States war. Why is that? Well, because when Russia and Ukraine go to war, it doesn't impact the global markets. It doesn't impact energy prices. It doesn't raise inflation. It doesn't make groceries more expensive. But when United States, Israel go to war with Iran, that impacts the global markets. It makes everything more expensive. It makes life more unaffordable. It puts governments in other countries to be in a situation where they have to use their emergency fuel, emergency funds. In Canada, what's happened? You have the Canadian government, the federal government, that's removed 10 cents on the gas excise tax till Labor Day. Question is Mark Carney going to go into an election at the end of the year? I've said a lot of things look very suspicious that he might intend to do so. While he removed 10 cents on the gas excise tax until Labor Day to bring fuel prices down, even though they're still very high. Then there was the 12 million Canadians that got the grocery benefits payment in their accounts because groceries cost a lot of money right now. And so this is having a global impact. And this is why it's sidelined the NATO talks. I'm going to go over what's taken place in NATO later today. But so far, this is where we sit at with President Trump under the pressure, thinking, should have I gone to war on February 28th when we had Prime Minister of Israel tell us, hey, it's easy to take it out. It looks like it's a civil revolution in Iran with mass protests. And look what you did in Venezuela. You took out Maduro overnight. No one knew. We can go in and do the same thing in Iran, do a regime change, put our own Delcy Rodriguez comparison of what is in Venezuela after the supreme leader is taken out. We put our own person in, and then we take control of Iranian oil. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy is what was essentially sold to President Trump. So what did he do? He went into war. And now he's in a situation where what was already open as the free waterway, Strait of Hormuz, no country had authority on it. And now here he is. He forgot about regime change. He forgot about, the enriched uranium that was so critical that he signed an MOU that had nothing to do with the enriched uranium that Iran has. And now it's all about the Strait of Hormuz and a problem that he can't get away from. And the pressure is mounting because what happens comes November this year in the midterms, if the Democrats gain advantage on the Republicans in the House and the Senate, President Trump is going to be a sitting lame president who can't do anything. Sure, he can pass his presidential powers and sign things, but then you still have the House and Senate that can impose on the president's powers. And this is something that he wants to avoid. And what does that mean? Well, it means affordability. It means don't spend $1 billion of American tax dollars on a war that is only making their gas prices higher and the cost of living higher overall, taking inflation up, which impacts the cost of goods and services and making life more unaffordable. And when it comes to food prices, more unaffordable. So, and those are all the promises that he said he was not going to go into forever wars and definitely not war in the Middle East because it never works out well. Anytime the United States goes into war in the Middle East, does it work out well? Is it predictable? Are the ends and the means achieved? Well, these are certain things that if you just pay attention to a little bit of history, you'd know that, consistently, time and time again, it's never worked out well when foreign powers come into the Middle East and they decide to dictate terms and get involved. And that is essentially what's taken place. So now you have these strikes that have marked the largest US military action against Iran since the fighting resumed following the collapse of now we can call a temporary ceasefire. Now, the Strait of Hormuz, I do want to remind you, handles 1/5 of the global oil shipments, making any disruptions a major international concern. Guess what? The Russia-Ukraine war that's going on for 4 years is still going on. The Iran conflict with Israel and the United States went on for 3 months, going on to 4 months, and already there's the pressure, sign, 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 get out of this, get out of the Middle East, let the Strait of Hormuz open. Do you see the difference? 4 months, what it's done to the global markets, and what 4 years has done or not done to the global markets. And when you balance the two, you start questioning, where do the attention go? And during NATO, well, NATO is all about Russia and the defense posture on Russia and the military exercise that's taking place there. And now the headline is this, and perhaps, just perhaps, the question remains, did Iran calculate it as such that they wanted to essentially sideline NATO talks and have the world pay attention to Iran and the Strait of Hormuz and their gas prices? Because guess what? The markets reacted 5%, almost 6%, and crude is already up at $80 a barrel. And you could rest assured that tomorrow when you go to fill up your gas tank, here's an interesting thing. The gas stations react very quickly and raise the prices. And when crude comes down, it takes a lot longer for for gas stations to reduce the prices. So here's what we're going to deal with over the weekend and what is the unforeseeable future until there's pressure on President Trump where he's going to come to the table. Because just the G7, he was saying a lot of things about Benjamin Netanyahu, who's the prime minister of Israel, about, he needs to take it easy and that Iran, is going to do what it's going to do, and he's going to sign the MOU. 2 weeks later, completely different posture. We do have videos for you to take a look at. What we're going to do is actually we're going to go to that right now. Take a look at what President Trump was saying earlier today at the NATO summit. He's sitting next to Mark Rutte, who's the Secretary General of NATO. Take a look.
And of course, they're dirty players, so they go after everyone, probably including me. I've been number one on their list for years. And they're a bunch of scum, you want to know the truth. They're scum. And so we don't like them. I don't like them. And they're evil people, and it's the denuclearization of Iran. And we're going to denuke it. We're not going to let them because they're crazy, and they can't have a nuclear weapon. And they go around killing people. They've killed thousands and thousands of our soldiers. They've killed hundreds of thousands of innocent people. They had the roadside bomb, Soleimani. I took care of him, first term. And that was a big thing, because I think it probably would be a lot stronger had he been around, because he was a bad guy, but he was an evil genius, but a bad guy. And he was the father of the roadside bomb. The roadside bomb is a bomb that goes on when you're driving your little vehicle around, and it goes on and you have no legs, no arms, and no face. And they've killed thousands and thousands of people. Even the SS Cole was theirs, you know, if you remember that disaster. So I don't like them at all. And frankly, I think we waste a lot of time with them. I think we should just do our business. Can you imagine? They start shooting bombs, actually missiles at ships yesterday. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, a couple of others. And they don't. I don't think they know what the hell they're doing. But they're bad people, very bad people. I think they're incompetent, by the way. Because if they were competent, they would have made a deal a long time ago. Like, how about 47 years ago? So they've been in trouble for 47 years, and we took out their first set of leaders. We took out their second set of leaders. They want to take out the U.S. leader, me. I'm on every list. I saw things this morning. I'm on every single one of their lists. And so far, I guess I've been a little bit lucky, but that maybe doesn't last very long, because that's the way it goes. But we have great people. But these are evil, sick people, and we have to rid their cancer. Their cancer. And you know what you do? You got to cut out cancer early. And that's the way I feel. And I want to thank Mark. He's been a great Secretary General of NATO. I'm not happy with NATO because of what they did with Greenland. And I'm not happy with NATO because of the fact that they didn't want to help us with the #1 state sponsor of terror. That's Iran. They were unwilling to help us. Now, in all fairness, I didn't speak to Mark about it. I think if I did, it might have been different. But we didn't need help. But I was really testing. I wanted to see whether or not they'd be there. And the answer is they were. I spoke to Germany. I spoke to France. Spoke to UK. Spoke to Italy. I didn't speak to Spain. Spain is a wasted cause. We don't want to do any trade business with Spain anymore, by the way. I'd like you to cut it off. Spain is a terrible partner in NATO. They don't participate. They don't pay. I don't want anything to do with Spain. Cut off all trade with Spain, please, including visits. Okay, we don't want anything to do. Watch them come running back. Oh, they'll come running back. They treat this man terribly, and this man's a good man too, great man. They're lucky they have him. But Spain doesn't agree to anything, and you shouldn't carry him. I mean, you sort of automatically carry because you're protecting an area, so they're there. So they probably figured they have to protect us, right? But we don't have to, and we don't have to trade with them. I don't want to do any more trade with them. All right?
Yes, sir.
Take it immediately. You don't even talk to them. They're hopeless. Bad people, because you know they have everybody else going and paying and working. In particular, Spain. There are a couple of others, but in particular, Spain. They're open about it. They're hostile about it, and let's see how hostile they remain when they call up and they, please, we want to trade with you, sir. We want to trade with you, sir. They make so much money with us, and we're going to see that they make a lot less. I want no business with them. So, other than that, we're having the big meeting in a little while, and I'm going to relate my problems. Greenland is a big problem for us, and the other big problem is the fact that when we wanted them, we didn't want them badly, but we did say, if you want to join us, and they all said no. But when they could have, they weren't there for us, and we've been there for them. We spent over $1 trillion over the last short period, $1 trillion, in order to protect these countries from Russia, and has nothing to do with us. We have an ocean, but it's been a long-term thing, and they haven't treated us right. And Mark understands that. He understands that. And we're going to work something out, I think, one way or the other. But we've been treated unfairly. We pay disproportionately. We had a time when we were paying 100%. We were paying 100% of NATO, and yet a lot of the countries weren't paying anything. But there was calls made a few weeks ago. I spoke with the UK, and the Prime Minister said, well, we don't want to help you now, but we'll help you when the war's over. I said, that's not good. And likewise, I spoke to Germany. They didn't want to help. I spoke to France. They didn't want to help. Nobody wanted to help. Some of the very small countries wanted to help because they're the most vulnerable. I mean, that's the only reason they wanted to help. So I appreciate you being here. We're going to be going back together, many of us together. And again, I want to say, despite the fact that I'm very upset with NATO, that we pay far, far too much, billions and billions of dollars too much, because it's unfair, because we're protecting them. So we protect them, but they're not there for us. Think of it. Doesn't work. But I want to say this is a great leader. They're lucky they have him. It's their biggest asset. You want to know the truth? So, Mark, would you say a few words?
Absolutely, and thank you so much, Mr. President. Dear Donald, let me start with Iran. We discussed it last night at the presidential palace. I think what you did, degrading the nuclear capability, crucial for Israel, the region, for Europe, degrading the ballistic missile capability of Iran, crucial for Israel, for the region, for you, for the whole world. And then trying to bring this to a peaceful end. They attacking ships yesterday. I think what you did last night was absolutely necessary. It was a very strong response. And I'm with you on this. It's really important. When it comes to
There you had it. That was President Trump speaking at the NATO summit. He covered a lot of topics, such as Iran, and then his how he thinks of NATO and more specifically Spain. We're going to cover all of that in much detail. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.